All right, I did want to watch this UN speech. In American history, there have been some pretty famously bad speeches. Lincoln's vice president, Andrew Johnson, showed up so drunk to his inauguration speech, had a drink in one hand and then sloppily kissed a Bible in the other, that it became known as the drunk vice presidential inaugural address. He drank heavily the night before, drank during, and drank after. They had to cover it up how drunk he was during his inauguration speech. By the way, only 48 days after this inauguration speech, Lincoln was dead, and Andrew Johnson had to give another speech, taking over as president. He was drunk for that too. And this speech might have been even worse because he at no point talked about Lincoln. Lincoln had just been shot and he talked about himself for like 45 minutes and how great he was and how important he was. But later on, William Harrison might have given the worst speech in American history because William Harrison gathered everybody in the cold, freezing rain and spoke for 2 hours. 2 hours 40, I think, in the cold, freezing rain about nothing, rambling about like history and Greco-Roman references, and then died. He got pneumonia and died. He like had the shortest presidency ever. It was like a few days. George Bush, right at the beginning of what would be 20-year-long quagmire wars, giggity, had a mission accomplished speech where he said they had already accomplished it all. He came out and said, it's done, when it wasn't even close to done, bro. So we've had some bad speeches in American history, and I don't know that we can rank this up there with that. But the reaction, what I'm seeing about this speech is up there, okay? People are saying that Donald Trump's UN speech from yesterday is pretty bad. Now, I've only seen recaps, only read about it, so I'm excited to watch it here with you today. There was some drama going into it, namely that the Donald Trump's escalator didn't work. There was, accusations that it was sabotaged to stop him from getting up the stairs. Caroline Leavitt said if someone intentionally stopped the escalator, they need to be fired and investigated immediately. The UN's response, this is what their statement is that one of Trump's photographers was at the top of the escalator and they caused it to stop because they were like putting a camera in the thing. That's what they said, but I don't know. But there was an escalator drama. And then there was also teleprompter drama. So when Donald Trump got out there to give the speech, the teleprompter was apparently broken. And because the prompter was broken, I believe we got one of the most insane off the cuff speeches that a president's ever given to an address of all world leaders. So that is what we're about to watch. We're gonna have to see it for ourselves.
Very much appreciate it. And I don't mind making this speech without a teleprompter, because the teleprompter is not working.
All right. I call it opening Riz. So far, so good. So far, so good, GOAT. It's self-effacing, it's casual. You got the audience eating out of the palm of your hand. They're laughing. I'm assuming it's all uphill from here.
And here in the United States, 4 years of weakness, lawlessness, and radicalism under the last administration delivered our nation into a repeated set of disasters.
So, high level, I would say, when you're presenting to your own country, it's sort of assumed that you can shit talk your political opponent because you're running an election against them and you have to eventually say why you're different or better. But when you are talking to the United Nations, it's kind of like parents shouldn't fight in front of the kids. The general strategy is that you don't air out your grievances with how your country's been turned into a fucking shithole in the 4 years of Joe Biden. You want to present a sort of united front that you are America, you are strong, you don't want to say, I've been given this absolute shit heap. Okay, that's my first note.
1 year ago, our country was in deep trouble, but today, just 8 months into my administration, we are the hottest country anywhere in the world, and there is no other country even close.
I'm sorry to pause, but my second note is you should always, with a speech, maybe consider the audience. This audience is people who lead other countries. They're all very passionate about their own countries. So talking about how their countries are how your country was shitty 8 months ago, but now it's super hot and everyone else's country is not close, is just, what is the purpose? Because the goal is, at the very least, get cooperation out of these people or get your goals advanced. This feels like bragging just to brag. It's just funny to consider the audience. Like, these are all world leaders. Why are you telling them how their countries are so shit by comparison?
Grocery prices are down.
No.
Mortgage rates are down.
No.
And inflation has been defeated. Thing that's up is the
Wait,
stock.
inflation is defeated? Even Melania's. Even she looks quizzical at that. Inflation's defeated? Mortgage rates are down? No, they're not.
In just 8 months since I took office, we have secured commitments and money already paid for $17 trillion. Think of it, 4 years
Okay,
less.
I wanted to pause. Again, I think a little tacky at this audience to be comparing yourself constantly with Joe Biden. But I did hear about this statement. I haven't watched the speech, but I did hear about this statement. So I wanted to check the veracity of it. So I checked what you have on whitehouse.gov/investments. Your official tally. This is the Trump official tally that has it at 8 trillion. So you just said 17 trillion, which is double the tally that you have here. But then I wanted to look into what was in this number, and almost all of it is commitments like this one from your first term, where you say that Saudi Arabia or Japan or South Korea is going to invest $500 billion, $600 billion, $700 billion. Now, this one from your first term, we can go back and check what happened, where you said Saudi Arabia would purchase $450 billion of US products. Problem is, $455 billion is the amount that Saudi Arabia has bought over the last 25 years combined. So the idea they're going to do that very quickly is like extremely insane. I don't think that's likely. So we can look back now and find out that did not happen. The number never materialized. Of course, they didn't buy 25 times their normal yearly output. And so the number that I'm seeing here feels inflated. It feels like there's a lot of like fluff in there of countries that will not actually materially buy more or less US goods than they were doing before. They buy what they need. They don't just make a promise and then throw $500 billion into new things. And the fact that you took this number and then seemingly doubled it for no reason is also weird, because where's the extra money coming from? But anyway, back to the speech. I just wanted to bring that part up because that economically didn't make sense to me.
On our southern border, we have successfully repelled a colossal invasion. And for the last 4 months, and that's 4 months in a row, the number of illegal aliens.
It's just so funny to do the campaign speech to this audience. They're all sitting stone-faced. They don't, like, what, you're just doing a campaign rally. You're talking about domestic issues to the United Nations.
A year ago, it was millions and millions of people pouring in from all over the world, from prisons, from mental institutions,
insane asylums, yeah.
drug dealers. They just poured into our country with the ridiculous open border policy of the Biden administration.
He said Biden 4 times already. We're 5 minutes in.
Likewise, in a period of just 7 months, I have ended seven
wars.
They said this includes Cambodia and Thailand, Kosovo and Serbia, the Congo and Rwanda, a vicious, violent war.
Dude, it's wild because like the leaders of all those countries are here. And like there's like many of those countries are mad that he's taking full credit for the whatever involvement he had. He's taking full credit for ending the wars. And so he's doing it right now.
Pakistan and India. And
like,
Armenia.
for example, Pakistan and India is an example where there's this big dispute rising because India is very upset that he is taking claim that he has ended the conflict with Pakistan, despite their claim is that he was barely involved.
Now, after ending all of these wars and also earlier negotiating the Abraham Accords, which is a very big thing for which our country received no credit, never receives credit. Everyone says that I should get the Nobel Peace Prize for each one of these achievements.
Dude, it's so funny to say, I don't receive any credit, but everybody says I should get the Nobel Prize. To simultaneously be an unheard of victim, but also that everybody in the world is singing your praises is would think impossible, but he's done it.
Many years ago, a very successful real estate developer in New York, known as Donald J. Trump, I bid on the rent.
I was like, who's he talking about? He goes third person with it. Subtle, I like that.
I said at the time that I would do it for $500 million, rebuilding everything. But they decided to go in another direction, which was much more expensive at the time. It was going to cost them a fortune.
He's hashing out like a 25-year-old grudge that the UN didn't hire him to remodel the building. You're the president right now, in front of world leaders, most of whom weren't even the leaders at the time.
And 3 months ago, in Operation Midnight Hammer, 7 American B-2 bombers dropped the 14 30,000-pound each bombs on Iran's key nuclear facilities, totally obliterating everything.
This is like minutes after openly campaigning for a Nobel Peace Prize. But it's also just a deep misunderstanding of like what you could gain out of this meeting. This all seems so very short-term and ego-driven. It's like a kind of a tough guy routine. But the point is, other people in this room have their own ability to make actions and decisions, and nothing about this is positioning you as a reliable partner or ally or someone. Like, they may have to work with you because the United States has an enormous economy and financial interests and military power, but it's like making it unappealing.
I've also been working relentlessly, stopping the killing in Ukraine.
Oh, let's hear about this.
I thought that would be, of the 7 wars that I stopped, I thought that would be the easiest because of my relationship with President Putin, which had always been a good one. I thought that was going to be the easiest one. But, you know, in war, you never know what's going to happen.
This guy's actually funny, man. It's just so sad that he's in the position that he is, speaking to every other world leader as the president of my country. But he is funny. You were the one that said it would be day one so many times. So many times. It was the #1 most repeated promise, is how the war in Ukraine never would have happened and you're going to get it done day one. If you're someone who's like, well, with war, you never know. Don't tell everybody how it's so easy and you're going to do it on day one. If you are of the opinion that, like, listen, these are things you can't predict, then don't predict it.
China and India are the primary funders of the ongoing war by continuing to purchase Russian oil. But inexcusably, even NATO countries have not cut off much Russian energy and Russian energy products. Cease all energy purchases from Russia. Otherwise, we're all wasting a lot of time. So
again, this is a broader take on the vibe of this room, right? So if you are in this room talking shit on China and India, 2 large economies, and Europe, like, what I'm saying is, who are the allies? Who are the people you're trying to build as your coalition? As you go around the globe one by one and shit on them in this, I just don't know where you see the people flocking to your side.
I look at London, where you have a terrible mayor, terrible mayor, and it's been so changed. Now they want to go to Sharia law.
So I wanted to talk about this specifically because, I wanted to check in on what's going on in London. Because people do say there's problems in London. So I wanted to see. And he's saying it's the mayor. It's the mayor is trying to put on Sharia law. If you were to guess what the citizens of London actually thought their biggest problems were, do you think you could do it? #1 woke mayor, it's true. They said persistent housing crisis and a high cost of living, aka rent and mortgages, which is a shocker to me because I really thought it was the Sharia law. I thought it was but it turns out, like most places, it's, again, economics. It's housing and high cost of living. Their mayor, Sadiq Khan here, is Muslim. However, I looked up his policies, and not only is he not doing Sharia law, he's like openly trying to get Britons to drink more. Sharia law would ban drinking. He's creating a summer streets fund to try and get more bars and tourism going. He's like trying to create a pub crawl network. I'm not endorsing this guy. I just, because again, I think London is going through an economic crisis. It's probably not being addressed. The inequality gap in London is getting really bad. It's impossible to live for a regular working person. However, is this guy doing Sharia law? No. He's not. Just like verifiably not doing that. He is just probably ineffectual at the greater economic challenges of Britain and is, doing small stakes, normal stuff to help London. So I would have to judge that as false.
But to stay this way, every sovereign nation must have the right to control their own borders. You have the right to control your borders, as we do now. and to limit the sheer numbers of
Listen, I want just a little comment on this in general, because it's a constant talking point. Like, immigration did surge in America in 2021, like right after COVID. There was an abnormal amount of immigration. And I am supportive of a border policy that you can have that is, you can control or constrain or whatever. Immigration is good for a country in general economically, but there can be a amount that a country can support, and you try to keep it around that band. But the problems that are causing these rising anger in a lot of Western European countries and here come back to the same thing I just showed in that slide. The real problems are cost of living, rent, mortgages, all that stuff, okay? And they're being blamed on immigration and borders. They're being redirected in that direction. Just as an example of why that won't solve the problem, even if you were to somehow perfectly control that and lock down your border. We have a much lower rate of border crossings right now, and we have not changed anything positively economically in America. Like, the problems right now, it's a perfect example of how that doesn't fix the problem. It's not related. It is not the problem. It's just a scapegoat. You can solve that quote unquote problem completely, and it will not change the fundamental thing that is making you angry. Grocery prices are going up. Inflation is going up. Housing prices are out of control. The economy is slowing down. None of these things are being improved by this constant rhetoric around immigration. It hasn't changed anything.
It's time to end the failed experiment of open borders. You have to end it now. See, I can tell you, I'm really good at this stuff. Your countries are going to hell. In America, we've taken bold action.
So that's the iconic line. I'm really good at this stuff. Your countries are going to hell, while looking out at the United Nations. It's just crazy. And it's like comically unheard of in the history of the United Nations, or in the history of the United States addressing its allies, so-called allies. It's crazy. I feel like I get caught up too much in like the details of the specifics of what he's saying, but like the grand scheme of it is crazy. Like, what is the purpose of this? What is the goal? If you truly don't care about the United Nations, then don't go. Don't show up. Why go here and just get all this bad will? I don't understand.
My people have done a fantastic job in doing what they did, and the American public agrees with it. I mean, I was very proud to see this morning I have the highest poll numbers I've ever had. Part of it is because of what we've done.
No. I'm sorry, but no. That is not true. I'm sorry, but that is incorrect. Underwater in 4 major categories. Trump's approval rating dips as Americans worry about the economy. Again, you're pulling Biden numbers, bro. You're pulling Biden inflation numbers.
I believe we lost 300,000 people last year to drugs. 300,000. Fentanyl and other drugs.
So I looked it up because I saw this line. 80,000. Not that it's a good number, but again, his insistence on taking every real number and then doubling or tripling it for effect is annoying. It's annoying. It's 80,000, which is a high number. We do have a huge drug problem in America. It is something we should work on. I don't think blowing up random Venezuelan boats is the way to stop it. And I just find the constant need to take numbers that are already prove your point or are shocking and then just make them, balloon them out of control. It reduces trust in every sentence.
Energy is another area where the United States is now thriving like never before. We're getting rid of the falsely named renewables. By the way, they're a joke. They don't work. And most of them are built in China, and I give China a lot of credit. They build them, but they very few wind farms. So why is it that they build them and they send them all over the world, but they barely use them? You know what they use? Coal?
So I wanted to check on that as well. You know, it's a pretty bold claim. China makes most of the world's solar and wind and exports it all over the world, but he's saying they don't actually use it themselves. So I pulled the data in an Excel sheet here, and then I sorted it. This is wind farm capacity by country by megawatts. And I sorted it by who had the most. And at the top is China, both in terms of operating wind farms, also under construction wind farms, also prospective total pre-construction plus announced wind farms. So they make the most, use the most, and are building the most. Now, it is true that China also has a fuck ton of coal. They have a ton of everything. I mean, China is doing everything. China is doing the most nuclear. They're doing the most solar. They're doing the most wind. They're doing first or second most coal. They're doing everything because China just cares about energy independence. That's what they want more than anything else. They just want it all. They want every source of energy, more than they care about environmental impacts. The statement that they don't use wind is not true. It's just, they use a ton of wind. They use a ton of solar.
If you don't get away from this green scam, your country is going to fail. And I'm really good at predicting things, you know? They actually said during the campaign.
Are you? I want to believe you because you're my GOAT. You're my greatest president ever, but sometimes you promise me things that don't come true. So I feel like your skills are elsewhere than predicting. Like sometimes you predict that you'll end the war on day one and that you'll get grocery prices down and that we're going to have a booming economy immediately roaring back. Now I'm worried that the predictions aren't really your strong suit. I'm just surprised. Now the United States' open position to the United Nations is that global warming is entirely a hoax.
The best-selling hat. Trump was right about everything. And I don't say that in a braggadocious way, but it's true. I've been right about everything.
My only problem with Trump is that he's too humble, bro. Take some credit. Take a bow. You've earned it.
But we don't have to do much hunting because we have the most oil of any nation anywhere, oil and gas in the world. And if you add coal, we have the most
Clean
of
coal,
any nation
please.
in the world. Clean, I call it clean, beautiful coal. You can do things today with coal that you couldn't have.
Hand of God, I didn't plan that. Hand of God, I didn't plan that. I just know that he always says clean coal.
Brazil now faces major tariffs in response to its unprecedented efforts to interfere in the rights and freedoms of our American citizens and others. I have a little problem saying this because I must tell you, I was walking in and the leader of Brazil was walking out. I saw him, he saw me, and we embraced. And then I'm saying, can you believe I'm going to be saying this in just 2 minutes? But we actually agreed that we would meet next week. But he seemed like a very nice man, actually. He liked me, I liked him. But if you, and I only do business with people I like. We had, at least for about 39 seconds, we had excellent chemistry. It's a good sign. But also in the past, Brazil, can you believe this?
But it's like, first let me shit on your country and say why we're applying a 50% tariff on everything to just completely fracture and rupture trade between our two nations. Then let me talk about how I met you in the hallway and how we're like, I kind of like you. We're hitting it off. And then let me go back to shitting on your country. This is crazy.
I'm very sorry to say this, that Brazil is doing poorly and will continue to do poorly.
No, he's talking about Lula, who gave the speech before him. Bolsonaro is the one who's in prison for doing a Trump-style coup, which is one of the reasons that Trump is saying they're targeting political opponents and wants to put a tariff on them. And again, worth saying, I want to get the bigger picture here. This can all be like, haha, Trump's saying some stupid stuff. It's leading to materially worse outcomes for American citizens. Specifically, as an example, the fact that we have antagonized both Brazil and China in speeches like these and with our tariff actions has pushed them together. And now China, which is a massive, massive soybean buyer, has now started buying all of their soybeans from Brazil. So Brazil farmers are loving it. They have a new major contract. China's loving it. They have a new supplier outside of the American system. American farmers are freaking out. American farmers have like 4 billion tons of soybeans that last year were bought by China and this year have no buyers. They are about to have the harvest and they are freaking out because they have no buyers. So they're going to have a horrendously financially devastating season. And that is one small example of what we are seeing over and over again of what happens when you drive everybody away. Again, I have said from the beginning that had there been a coordinated plan to really lock in with allies that shared similar history and value, like, go to Europe, go to Korea, go to Japan, go to people that have had long histories of alliances with America and build a coordinated network to try and push back on China in some way to recapture some of the manufacturing they've grabbed. That is like at least a strategic plan that makes sense. But what he has done, not only in his words here, but in his actions, is like force everyone to do as little with America as they can get away with. Now, it's so big that they still have to do some with it, but like as little as they get with and try to find other routes for the long term outside of it so they don't have to be at the whims of this guy's mob boss style words and actions. It's frustrating, I mean, this is a funny speech, and I'm making fun of it as I go, but this style is frustrating and creates these deep, long-term rifts outside of the U.S. dollar system, outside of the U.S. trade system, that leaves people in the country I live in poorer, just like literally with worse, more struggling lives. And so it's annoying. This whole strategy towards other nations I find to be really stupid and short-sighted.
We'll turn it around. We're going to make our countries better, safer, more beautiful. We're going to take care of our people. Thank you very much. It's been an honor. God bless the nations of the world. Thank you very much. Bye.
Wow. Chills. Well, anyway, I don't know where that ranks among the all-time speeches, but I found that to be a really bad speech. I just think it accomplished no goals. I think it looked bad, and I think it's frankly a little bit embarrassing to be talking in front of the United Nations that way. So you can let me know your own personal rankings, but crazy thing to watch.